Hello to all the listeners. My name is Dylan,
And I'm Dylan.
and we would like to thank you for taking the time to give us a listen. And if you do enjoy, please drop a like and subscribe for our weekly podcast, or even check out the clips that we post from each show.
You can also follow us at our Twitter on screen and then tune in each week, Wednesday night, for our weekly podcast streaming at DatDill on Twitch.
Thank you, and enjoy the podcast.
Yeah, we were going back to he was the worst quarterback in the league statistically.
Yeah. I mean, he really was. Like, it was just, like I said, his completion percentage was terrible. His accuracy, throwing the ball anywhere, I mean, down the field, short throws, he was just off. He had no timing with his receivers. He was just bad. He seemed like a broken quarterback. Like, I don't know how the Eagles broke him that fast, but they did. And if you think you could fix him and you think he can bounce back to being the Carson Wentz that like he could be, then by all means take him. But if it's me, I don't want to see him on the Bears because I think that situation's not going to work out. I heard a funny thing that was like the Bears organization, the coaches feel comfortable that they can fix his mechanics. And I was like, do they though? I was like, do they really feel comfortable? Like,
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna think they're gonna do any differently there. I mean, I don't know what's gonna be different there. What's gonna be what's gonna be better on the Bears side the Eagles don't have. I mean, receivers maybe. Allen Robinson says. Offensive line, I'd hardly think so.
by the way, Dylan, I don't know what it is, but your mic sounds super deep.
Super deep.
Yeah, you sound like you're trying to like. I don't know what happened.
Well, is it any better
Huh?
now?
What's up?
Does it sound any better now?
A little bit. You still have this like deep undertone that sounds like you're trying to seduce me or something.
Hmm.
The whole thing, he's gonna end up going to the Colts. That's what's gonna happen because what's gonna happen is the Eagles are gonna have to take a like I said, a trade that they're not gonna be as happy about, and that's just the way they're gonna have to do it. Like if you're going to, they're gonna have to eat a lot of his dead cap, which is whatever, but they're getting rid of him, and I think they can move forward with Jalen Hurts because I think Jalen Hurts should definitely get a shot at starting. He played really well last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. But my next topic, I got a couple things that I saw. So I did see Richard Sherman's 100% done in 40 with the 49ers. So that was interesting. I don't know where he's gonna go because there's a lot of teams that need a corner, but with Richard Sherman, because he's a veteran and because he is going to demand probably a 1-year deal with a bit more money than just like I'll take you on.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where he would go that would be competitive that would need him.
Hear me out. The Browns.
Yeah, I could
Thoughts.
see that. I really could see that. The Browns would make 100%
Cap
like a lot of
space.
sense.
Need for cornerbacks. 1-year deals,
Yeah.
very acceptable. Competitive? Yeah. Now they are. Now they're considered competitive.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, the Browns are an up-and-coming team because they have all this youth and all this talent, and then also they have a bunch of money, which helps. So I definitely could see that. I could see the Browns for sure. I was trying to think of other teams that are in the mix. Does he take a cheap deal to go to the Chiefs or something like that? Like maybe. I feel like Richard Sherman's more of the type to go to like the Browns because they'll be able to pay him more money.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see how that plans out. But that's just something I saw that was interesting. Panther. Oh, here's a good. So Watson is not going to be traded at the moment. The Texans are hardcore trying everything they possibly can to keep him, which I don't think is going to work out in the end. But you know, what are we going to do? Or what are they going to do? So I think the 4 teams that I foresee him going to, or 3 teams, I should say, I think he is going to most likely get traded if he does to either the Panthers, the Jets, or the Dolphins.
Okay.
Now,
Was there something new that came out recently that absolutely not taking him?
why there's just reports coming out that they're like the Texans are apparently not answering any calls on Watson at the moment or something. It was something like that where they're just not answering the phone. So
Yeah.
it's one of those where they're hardcore trying to keep him, but like we might reach an inevitable end where they're going to have to get rid of him.
Yeah.
So those 3 teams though, like so here's the deals that you have. So the Panthers don't have the draft capital, but what they do have is they could trade, for instance, like a Christian McCaffrey, along with maybe 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and maybe one of their young defensive starters that they have. I'm thinking maybe even like what's that pass rusher's name? Gross Matos, maybe trading him.
Oh, I
I
definitely
could see
don't
something
know
like
that name.
that. So, huh?
Definitely don't know that name. Gross Matos.
Yeah, he's a rookie from Gross Matos. He's like a rookie from Penn State. You could probably type into Google real quick and pull him up. But he's very talented pass rusher. But that's a guy that I could see being included in the deal, as well as Christian McCaffrey. So
Yeah.
then I could also see, like I said, the draft picks.
What about what's Teddy Bridgewater's dead cap? You running? They
So
just
he's
keep him
making,
as a backup?
yeah. I mean, you'd basically eat his. It's not a bad contract. He's like 3 years, 20 million a year. So it's like I think it's like 3 years, 62 million or something. So it's one of those where he's making 20 million a year. So, and I'm sure there's probably something in the deal. I don't know exactly. I'd have to look at the deal. I don't know, if there's. I would think that there's probably a cutoff where like after the second year they could cut him for a little dead cap space.
Yeah.
But I mean, even if they have to eat that contract and save, if you have to eat that contract and you get Deshaun Watson, you do it. You know,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the Dolphins, that'd be the most interesting. I don't really know outside of what I saw from the Panthers like last year, compete even with Deshaun Watson, but like the Dolphins, even with pretty okay quarterback play back, they're good to go. I think that would take them over the top. The Jets, again, I don't really know what that would do for them. It would probably
well,
stabilize them. I don't think they'd be eating somehow.
yeah. So the other two teams, the trades would look like basically. So start with the Jets. The Jets would basically, I mean, they have 2 first round picks this year. One of them being the second overall pick, and what that means for the Texans is that the Texans would most likely be able to take, a Zach Wilson, who I think is going to go to the Jets if they don't trade it. So what that trade does is it opens up where, and this is where you start going like the conflicting opinion on which quarterback you think you'd rather have. So if you trade to the Jets, I think what you're getting is you're getting 2 first round picks this year, probably a first next year, probably a second, and then probably a starter on defense because that's kind of what they were looking for. And essentially, what the Texans are banking on is most likely drafting Zach Wilson out of BYU. So what you're doing with the whole trade there is you're banking on Zach Wilson being the quarterback of the future, which I like Zach Wilson a lot. There's things we'll talk about later than when we go over my mock draft because I did record my first mock draft that we'll go over. So there's a lot to like about Zach Wilson. So what you're essentially doing in this trade is banking on him over what the Dolphins would offer. And now what the Dolphins would offer is the Dolphins would give you a first. They'd give you the third overall pick this year, which would turn into most likely Jamar Chase, I would think. Well, again, we'll talk about this in my mock draft who I think they'll get, but that could turn into a star wide receiver paired with Tua Tagovailoa, and then you add in probably 2 first round picks. Well, no, I would say another first round pick and then another second round pick. So it would be 2 firsts, a second, and Tua. So basically, what you're going for is if these two teams are offering you these trades, do you think that Zach Wilson or do you think that Tua have a better shot at being successful in the league?
What do you
Now,
think? You could
what
do a
I
whole
like
thing on Tua, but what is your initial impression?
on Tua.
Yeah. Keep,
My
get rid
initial
of.
my initial thing on Tua is I feel like Tua needs to trust his arm and trust his talent. His biggest issue, if you watch his games, was that he was just like not getting like he just didn't have like a safety net or like he didn't trust his receivers to get open as much, which is understandable. The Dolphins receiver core is not that spectacular, which is why I think they'll draft a wide receiver. But that's my thing is I think the Dolphins wide receiver core wasn't that great, and I think Tua being a rookie quarterback, kind of thrown in with an awkward like Ryan Fitzpatrick's the starter. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Kind of weird, plot line that you had going there.
Yeah.
So
He's the closer.
ultimately, at the end of the day, I think Tua is super talented. I think he has all the makings of a great starter, but I think he's more of a you have to develop him right kind of guy.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm comparing him to Zach Wilson, I think Zach Wilson is going to be a very similar prospect, but with the bonus that I think Zach Wilson is already confident. Like I think he's not going to hesitate, which I think Tua does a decent amount just because he's not trusting his receivers. He's not, he's a rookie. I think Zach Wilson kind of walks in without that hesitation and will, go for those throws automatically. So if it was me and the Texans, you're trying to say who do I want growing for the universe, growing my team and everything like that. I think if you like both, you have to make the Dolphins trade because then you'll get Tua and the third pick, which means that you'll get a player or a weapon to go with Tua. So that way you automatically have, those two growing in your system.
Okay.
But I think ideally if I'm judging the two quarterbacks, I like Zach Wilson more than I like Tua.
Okay. Do you think this would be? You think it'd be worth it then, if you're able to go upgrade?
I think so. I think the trade for Tua or the trade for Tua would make a lot of sense, but I also think that Zach Wilson's better short term as well as I think he could be long term. So I would go with Zach Wilson and make the trade to the Jets. And I think what the Jets get with Deshaun Watson is basically they're starting over, brand new head coach who's going to walk in with a different, organizational feel than whatever the heck Adam Gase has been doing for the last, I don't know how long. So and then when you add Deshaun Watson in the mix, that's a great way to, jumpstart your team and automatically, it's like if you started a race and you're like, okay, we're going to start at the beginning, we're starting fresh, but then getting Deshaun Watson is like, okay, we're going to take 5 steps forward first and we're going to start the race. Like that's so
yeah.
I would, if it was me, and I 100% would trade for Deshaun Watson no matter what. I don't care what team I am at, what I am. There's maybe like 2 other quarterbacks in the league 2 or 3 other teams in the league that are fine where they're at, and that's the Chiefs, the Packers. But
well, what do you mean? The Packers are looking to eventually replace Aaron Rodgers pretty soon.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other
they're not complacent
or conversation. I don't listen. I don't know what that draft was. The Packers draft, real quick. We just talk about that. The Packers draft last year of Jordan Love, a backup AJ Dillon, and a backup tight end in DeGuara was them basically trying to get people in that Matt or LaFleur likes, and not so much immediate help now to Rodgers.
Right.
I think that was LaFleur being like, we can win with the team we have, so let me start getting pieces in that I want.
Yeah.
Which is fine, I guess, but I would try to win now if you had Aaron Rodgers and you were.
It looks like a poor decision now, that's for sure. Maybe at the time it was a good idea.
Well, now you've lost in the NFC Championship twice. Well, not the NFC Championship, actually. They lost. No, wait. Oh, yeah, that was the NFC Championship.
Yep.
Yeah. Now you've lost in the NFC Championship twice in a row.
Back-to-back L, which, by the way, my voice was still doing the productive thing. Except it was only on stream because I heard myself and I was like, what the fuck?
Amazing. Okay, well, it didn't sound terrible, but it does sound a lot better now. But
it ain't me. Anyways, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Also, by the way, if you're watching this film in the background with Zach Wilson, what you're seeing the whole time is the guy who makes very accurate throws. His deep throw accuracy is a little questionable at times. That's probably something he'll have to work on. But I love his ability to play make, and I love his timing with his receivers and his confidence that he has. Because one of my biggest things about quarterbacks, and again, oh man, should I talk about this now? I don't know if this should be a whole segment I should talk about when we get to, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at I think moving forward every podcast I would like to single out a position group and talk about it. So I think like quarterbacks would be a fun one, or I take like my
snappers.
top. Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll spend a whole video on. Listen, we'll have a whole video on. I will watch videos on punting techniques and long
Love
snapping
special
techniques.
teams, so
And
it'd be no problem.
I do love special teams. I really do. I think special teams is unbelievably crucial in games and just so overlooked. They get made fun of a lot more than anything. But anyways, just a brief little insight into that. What I'm going to talk about though is essentially I like Zach Wilson because I think one of the biggest things with a quarterback is the quarterback's ability to be confident in himself is kind of the cheapest way to say that. But basically what I'm saying is walk in with like a swagger into the team. So like for example, Baker Mayfield getting drafted by the Browns first overall. Everybody in that draft at the time thought Baker Mayfield was probably like the number 2 or 3 quarterback in that draft. They didn't think he was the most talented. But for me, when I saw that draft pick, I was like, this is 100% the perfect draft pick for them. Because the thing is you're not drafting not only a talented quarterback, but you're also drafting a quarterback that's going to walk into Cleveland, which is, Cleveland, and a team that was, won one game over 2 seasons. And so you need a guy who's going to walk in and basically have a swagger about him that is going to reignite interest in the city. And that's what happened. And that's where the Browns are now. So that's what I think about Zach Wilson. That's why I think if the Jets did end up staying and not trading the pick and they got Zach Wilson, I think they're making a great decision either way, because I think Zach Wilson is the type of guy who's going to walk in and add a swagger or confidence to the Jets, especially with them trying to overhaul their whole organization. I think it's a great, I think it's a great pick. I think it's the only quarterback in this draft, in my opinion, the only quarterback in this draft that is going to do that for your team, where he'll walk in with a swagger.
Well, for
And
context,
yes,
him being someone is literally, I think at this time last year or even beforehand, a little bit maybe beginning of the season, it was always like, oh, hey, maybe the Bears will be able to get Zach Wilson like at 20, 15, somewhere around there. He's not going to, he seems like that guy who's like a sleeper pick. And then like throughout the entire season and then playoffs and everything, he like slowly shot up to people who are like, are they going to take him at 5? Like, is he 1-1 between like him and Justin Fields after Trevor Lawrence? So like another one of those people that everyone's like, hey, he's a sleeper pick. No one else is thinking this. And then all of a sudden, at least in context, people are like, oh, he's definitely going to go like top 10 at least.
yeah. Well, it's just because everything's there. Like you're watching his running ability, the way he commands the offense. I mean, when you're watching these highlights, what you're seeing is a guy who's just commanding an offense. And that's crucial because something, and again, I'll go more in depth into it with, highlights and pointing out things, but one of my biggest gripes about Trevor Lawrence this year is I think Trevor Lawrence is the most talented quarterback in this draft by far, and I think that you should draft him first overall. I want to put that out there right now. But my issue with Trevor Lawrence is if you think Trevor Lawrence is going to walk in and bring an energy and a swagger and a leadership and ignite your offense kind of guy when the chips are down, I don't think you're getting that. I think you're getting a quarterback who's very talented, but is going to need to play in an offense that has talent and is already, decent.
Okay. I could
And
see
that's just
that.
how I feel about him. Whereas Zach Wilson, I feel like Zach Wilson's a great fit for the Jets because I think the Jets are trying to establish, like I said, a new organization and a new way of doing things. And I think you throw Zach Wilson in there with his swagger and the way that he, the way that he carries himself, the kind of attitude that he has, the ability to move with his feet is huge because you're not going to have a spectacular offensive line with the Jets yet. I mean, they have a great left tackle in place and a couple of good offensive linemen here and there, but none of those offensive linemen besides the left tackle am I confident in moving forward for the next 3-4 years. So he's going to have to run around and make things happen with his legs, which I think is ideal for the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, like I obviously don't watch nearly as much or very little ball, but even just watching highlights and stuff, the thing that comes up pretty quickly here is, I don't know if it was like an NFL comparison or something, but yeah, like I'm basically seeing like really quick, quick thinking, and there's not a lot of like shaky or hesitancy or anything that's going on here. I don't know much about like, his actual athletics and his physical, but it looks like everything's pretty pristine and he's like working in the system pretty well.
Yeah, and that's what he does, and that's why I like him a lot. Is because there's just a confidence about him where he's not questioning. He's not questioning his throw, and it's not the confidence. Don't get me wrong. It's not the confidence that you saw in like a Jay Cutler, where Jay Cutler, you're like, hey Jay, you've thrown
Fuck it and
3
chuck it.
interceptions to the same player in 1.5. Do you think you'll throw to him in the second half? And he's like, hell yeah, I will. Like that's not the confidence I'm talking about. The confidence I'm talking about is the confidence to step into a throw and go, I can make that throw. Yeah, or like I can make that throw and it's the right throw. Like that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, totally agree.
So that's what I'm seeing. Like I said, I don't think he's got the greatest arm talent in the world. He's not throwing the ball 70 yards like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. He's not, precision accuracy like Aaron Rodgers or Mahomes even. But he is definitely a quarterback who has the potential to be in the probably the top 10 in the league when he's at his peak.
Yeah.
Which is, you can win with that for sure.
Pretty high praise. Yeah, no, they can win with a lot of that.
But yeah, so now we've talked a lot about the Watson trade. A couple other things I want to go through and NFL wise is the JJ Watt situation. I think JJ Watt, first off, I think his the teams that are interested are the Bills, Browns, Dolphins would be an interesting place, Packers, Bears, Bucks. Now, where I think he's actually going to go, I think I want to say off the top of my head, I'm going to say either the Browns, the Bucks, or the Packers. Those are your 3. I forgot about the Steelers, by the way. I forgot to throw the Steelers in there because of the family situation, but I don't think he's going to go to the Steelers. I haven't
Steelers are broke.
I felt like it was, huh?
Steelers are broke.
Well, they just don't have the money, and they're not good enough for him to take like a small deal based on the fact that he'll be, because his taking of a small deal is him going for the ability to play for a winner, and that's why he would take a small deal. And I think that you're going to get that out of the Bucks and Packers,
Yeah.
and as well as the Browns. But I think the Browns should get a little bit more money, obviously.
Yeah.
So those are my 3 teams I think that I would see him going to. I think in my opinion he ends up in either the Browns, probably the Browns or the Packers.
So that's one of the things I saw coming up quite a bit was if you would go to the Bucks, he would be Shaq Barrett's replacement, essentially.
I've heard that, but I don't like that because like you're talking about a guy in Shaq Barrett that's there every single play, every game. And I don't trust JJ Watt to be healthy enough to cover that kind of productivity over a whole season.
Mm-hmm.
And JJ Watt is like, you're seeing a little bit of edge rushing, but he's more of a, he's better in the inside, in my opinion, because he's able to, I think in like a 3 technique in like not the nose tackle, but the other, line. I can't think of the name right now, but see, like right here, this is, blowing past the guard to blow up a run on 3rd down. That's the type of stuff that JJ Watt does well.
Yeah.
See, right there. Again.
And that's on the Packers line too.
Yeah. Now, if you're thinking maybe he'll replace Ndamukong Suh because he's a free agent, maybe that's a better idea. If you're trying to replace him, if you're bringing him to the Bucks because you're wanting to replace Shaq Barrett, that's not going to work. But if you're trying to bring him to the Bucks because you want to replace the production you got from Suh, then yeah, for sure, go for it. So if it was me, I would bring back Barrett and I would sign Watt and I would drop Suh because I think it will get more production on Watt and I think he's a good replacement.
He sounds like he's going to be going for broke though, or not for broke. He's going to be going for the bank. Everything that I've seen so far it was like he's talking about Barrett is not going to take a discount.
Oh, Barrett.
That's what I've seen so far.
It would be a fun place to go to. Then, if he's trying to break the bank, I would immediately go to Cleveland. 100%. Like that's why Cleveland is so in the mix. Cleveland, or I could see him going to the Colts because the Colts have a ton of money and they could use. Pass rush is never a thing that you don't want.
Yeah. What are the Colts cap space? Obviously,
they have like 88 million in cap space. Yeah, they have something absurd. It's like in the 80s or 90s or something. It's something stupid like that.
They got to sign Quentin Nelson getting to that point.
Yeah, but the problem with Quentin Nelson is he's playing guard position, and the guards typically don't get paid a ton.
Maybe the
Like, not
exception.
compared to, like, left tackles.
Oh, no, no, he's got
Like,
a
guard, you
4.
probably get paid, like, $10 million a year.
Yeah.
Huh?
I just saw something come up for Quentin Nelson saying that he had a 4-year contract. That was from when he was
Well,
drafted.
that's a rookie deal.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Forgot he was picked so high.
Yeah, he was listen, that year, I thought I wanted him for the Bears. It's just that we ended up drafting Roquan Smith, so I'm not upset about it, but
Yeah.
I wanted him for the Bears because we needed an offensive guard to replace Kyle Long, and I was like, Quentin Nelson is a tank of a human being.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I mean, he
mean,
was
they
very
might have picked him. The pick's too late.
yeah, well, that was the other thing too, is he went before the Bears pick, so it wasn't one of those. Speaking of the Bears, um, yeah, beautiful. Okay. Anyways, so moving on from JJ Watt because we're done with that for the moment. But also another thing I thought was interesting is I have you heard really much from the Patriots?
Nothing. I don't know.
And I know the Patriots typically don't like they keep everything close to the cuff and they don't really like to do a whole lot as far as spending money and quarterback play they haven't had to worry about. But I'm like, what do they what do they do? Because Cam Newton's not the answer. Like, I'm sorry, but Cam Newton just doesn't look good ever since his you could pull up Cam Newton highlights this year. They're not good. Like he's just
No,
I don't know what they're
they
gonna
can't
do.
throw the ball at all. Literally at all.
No,
Everyone
I mean
saw
he
the
can't
Seahawks and Patriots game and were like, oh my god, maybe the Patriots are going to be back. They literally just blasted terrible Seahawks run defense and exploited it the whole time.
I
And
mean
then
look
Cam
at the
got
first two
COVID
highlights.
and oof.
What first two highlights? First three highlights are him running.
Yeah. His arm shot and he
Like
got
not even
even
a
worse
pass play. That's probably
after he
one
got
right here
COVID.
too. Let's see how he's throwing. Like that was a good play, but it wasn't spectacular.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
look at how
look
slow
at
that
that. I
ball's
mean,
moving. That's all I'm saying.
oh my god! Not only it looks like honestly, it looks like Phil Rivers.
Oh my god! I think. Oh look! He literally a wind up and everything into it. He literally put his entire body in it to throw it like 30 yards.
Yeah, he's just something. Ever since that injury, he's not the same, and it's kind of sad because Cam Newton was super talented, and if you have Cam Newton in his, Cam Newton before the surgery and before the injury, he's probably, the Patriots are probably in a great place. But yeah, it's just
It does make me
unfortunate.
feel
But
good though. Not the fact that he got injured, but the fact of how often after the first 2 weeks it was like, oh my god, the Bears passed up on Cam Newton. They could have had him on a minimum deal. Blah 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 blah. I was so glad to see him fail for that purpose only because I was sick of
well,
hearing
see,
people say that.
here's the funny part about that is I wanted to see the Bears bring in Cam Newton, but I wanted him to compete for the job with I wanted there to be like three quarterbacks.
Yeah. Oh, there were.
Like I would love to. I would have been happy if we had if it was a Nick Foles, Trubisky, Cam Newton, and okay, let's see which quarterback wins. Like that would be the way I would want it to go down. That's how I wanted Cam Newton. I didn't want him as in I think he's going to be the guy. I wanted Cam Newton just because I thought, you know what, let's bring in some competition. If Cam Newton is anything like his old self, there's a lot of potential there. But
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking okay, what are they even going to do? And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe they could bring in someone like Kenny Galladay if they overpay a bunch. But I was like, oh yeah, they still have to have someone to throw him the ball. I guess that's the first thing to figure out.
That's what I mean. I don't know what the Patriots are doing. I don't know what I think they're going to draft somebody, but I also that doesn't seem very Patriot. But what are they going to do? I mean, they don't have another option.
I mean, there really isn't, unless you're going to get someone else who's like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, somebody else who's just going to fall down behind all the other quarterbacks after all they're taking their seats on musical chairs. I mean, who's left at that point? Alex Smith?
Yeah, I mean,
No, Alex Smith's still signed for another year.
honestly,
I mean, he's toast anyways.
Watch them sign Trubisky.
That's what
I would
everyone
love to
says,
see
and I could see that. I mean, he's going to be
I could
cheap.
easily see it just because I think if anybody's going to fix him, it's going to be the Bill Belichick offense.
I mean, from a personal view, where else would you want to go? Everyone,
Yeah.
if he's actually interested in bringing him in, I mean, he knows his value is going to be lower, and he can actually go there, and I would take that deal instantly.
Yeah,
I would trust that. Even if he doesn't have anyone to throw to, like you still have you still have things that can make it work. And if there were people to bet on, I would probably go to the Patriots and bet on them figuring it out. If they made Cam Newton
Yeah.
work for almost the whole season, imagine what they could do with Trubisky, even if he is terrible at
No, I agree.
throwing the ball.
But all right, well, other than that, little bit of a somber note. Did you see the whole Vincent Jackson thing?
I did. Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
I didn't
that
know he
was
was that young too.
38 years old. I remember Vincent Jackson because he was like before Godwin and Evans. Like Vincent Jackson was like a stud. Like that dude was a star receiver, and he was like 6'3", 6'4". Like he was one of those bigger receivers that was like super, talented. Like would catch anything thrown in his direction. He was a great player, and from all accounts, I mean, not a bad guy. Little sad to see that, kind of random. Just wanted to mention it because he's somebody again, kind of grew up watching. So
Yeah.
the
Nuts.
other thing too, yeah, moving on to the next thing I have a list of notable free agents, and we'll very quickly go through it because it's a little bit of a longer list. So just
The
very
highlight
briefly mention
players.
them. Yeah. So AJ Green's going to be available. That's an interesting. It's an interesting player because as long as he's not demanding a lot of money, that's a great pickup for any team that's looking for a veteran receiver who could produce maybe in the red zone or make a catch here and there. Be a good depth receiver for a team. So I could see like even like the Chiefs, for example, they can get him in like a low deal or something like that. Like that would be ideal.
Like their Sammy Watkins
Um,
replacement.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Uh, Bud Dupree is available, outside linebacker, decent pass rusher. Pass rushers always have a home, so I'm sure he's going to end up somewhere. I don't really know where. I don't have a beat on that. He's one of those guys that I'm assuming is just going to go to a random team.
Yeah.
But Dak, I feel like Dak. I don't know what Dak's going to do.
He's
I
staying
feel
with the
like he should
Cowboys,
hold out.
man.
It's so unfortunate because I would love. It's just that if he hit free agency market, he'd be commanding a $30 million contract, and Bears can't give that to him. But I would love to have Dak because I think that he is a very, very talented receiver quarterback who makes great decisions, and I think is all around a good guy. And so it's one of those where like you can't go wrong with that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always make fun of him when it's because it's the Cowboys and everything, but absolutely, he would be. He's top 10. I mean,
So
the ridiculous stats that were coming out with what was it like? I don't know. After like he got injured in week 5 or whatever it was, still in like week 8 or week 10, he was like second or third in passing yards in the league because he was like
yeah.
that on pace. Nuts.
Next one, Patrick Peterson, cornerback for the Cardinals. You remember him? He's like he was a superstar for a while.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be available because I'm assuming I'm assuming they're gonna move on from him because I'm assuming he's gonna want kind of a 1-year deal like Richard Sherman's been doing, where he'll make a decent amount of money. So
Yeah.
let's
I
see.
don't know. Maybe another. I don't know. I'm picking everyone to go to Cleveland because I just think because they're just one of the teams that like
It's
they're
because they
up
have
and
so much
coming. They have
money.
so much money. Yep.
Well, the Cleveland and Indianapolis are the two places where they don't need a lot. Like they're both really good teams. It's just they have so much money that you're just like, oh, they could, like
They got
extra
that
pass
luxury
rusher. Why
power a little
not?
bit.
Like, huh?
They got that luxury power a little bit. It's like why
Yeah.
nots? Got a lot of money for why nots.
Exactly. Like, oh, extra, good wide receiver. Okay. Like, AJ Green, for example, we are just talking about him. Like, what if the Browns were like, Odell got injured last year, Jarvis Landry was really good, let's add AJ Green just to have another receiver in the mix that's, could get playing time if needed. Like
Yeah.
that's the type of position the Browns are in, and it's a great position to be in. Same with the Colts. The Colts are a team that I 100% see. I see. I think Kenny Galladay, who's another free agent on my list, is probably going to go to the Colts. That's who I'm thinking is going to sign him, just because that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
I can see
uh,
that.
him, okay. JJ Watt, we talked about Quan Short, defensive tackle. That could be a good replacement for the Bucks for Ndamukong Suh.
Oh yeah.
Um, kind of fill in right there, and he wouldn't be too expensive. We talked about Patrick Sherman, Joe Tooney from the left guard for the Patriots. He's available. Really good starting guard who's like 27 years old. So you got a couple, probably 4 or 5 year more good years out of him. So any team that really is kind of looking for inside help, he's going to demand a decent amount of money. So I think like teams like the Chiefs and stuff like that aren't going to be able to look at him. But for a team like I don't think the Bears are going to be able to look at him. But like for a team that may need like Texans, for example, who need some offensive line help for if they end up having a new quarterback, that would be a good pickup.
Yeah.
Shaq Barrett is a free agent, obviously. I see in my heart, I think he goes back to the Bucks, but I could also easily just to see the Browns being the landing spot or the Colts again, because like I said, both teams have just an obvious amount of money, and you get a guy who comes available who's still what 27, 28 years old and putting up 12 sack seasons, so you might as well. And then you've got Chris Godwin. He's going to resign. I'm not really thinking he's going to become a free agent too much.
Mm-hmm.
Simmons from the uh what is the Broncos? Justin Simmons. He's available, but I think he'll resign again. So I think that's going to be he'll be off the market. Sheriff from Washington, he'll probably resign. Let's see, anybody else? Judon, he'll be available. That's a good pass rusher.
He was on the Ravens
kind of
last year,
plug in.
right?
Huh?
He was on the Ravens last year.
Yeah, he was pretty
Okay.
productive for the Ravens.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that you'll bring in to be, a good depth pass rusher,
Yeah.
Galladay, I told you where I thought him. Levante David, I think he's back with the Bucks again. That's another guy that I think will sign for not a very big deal because they have Devin White and but I think he'll take a little bit of a hometown discount to come back. Leonard Williams, I think the Jets probably re-signed him. If he becomes available, I'd be shocked. But Leonard Williams, they just made the trade for him, so I can't foresee him. I can't see him being let go. Ngakwe. There we go. I can't pronounce that terribly the first time around. Ngakwe, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Like he's just run out of Jacksonville, then suddenly run out of the Vikings again, and then now he's with the Like I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. So
Did he
there's
only have a
that.
year left at the Vikings? Rated there.
Yes, I think he
Okay.
was at the end. I think it was his 5th year option that was on the wire. But Hunter Henry, I think he re-signs with the Chargers, but if he did become available, that's a super, good tight end that you'd have right there. And then you have Alex Mack, the center for the Falcons. I don't know if he retired. I can't remember. But if he was available, huh?
Old.
Yeah, he's still a really good center. So he's a guy that if you get him for the right price, he's a very as long as you have a good backup behind him that you're confident in, Alex Mack's a great player to have because he'll, when he's playing, he's good.
Yeah.
And then I think Samuel Watkins, I don't know what he's going to get really in his interest because he's just had so little eye-popping plays in production that doesn't dictate any big contracts. So I have no idea what's going to happen with that. And then last but not least, which I think is an interesting one, is Gronk. I feel like Gronk for the first time being a free agent is interesting because I feel like he could go wherever he wants.
No way.
And
That's a signed deal. He's not going
yeah,
anywhere else.
I would love to see Gronk go to a different team just for the hell of it, but I don't think he will. I agree with you.
He ain't going anywhere. He literally came back just to play with Brady. He doesn't care about the money. He literally needs nothing else. Signed deal. I would put the house on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would lean towards you, Roy, too.
It would be shocking.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and then moving on to the next topic, which I think will be interesting. I feel like we can't rant for too long on this topic because it's not interesting for everyone out there, but a little bit of Bears talk. What I think. So I wanted to start with what I think their draft should look like if they make a trade for a Derek Carr, or if they don't and they don't have a quarterback besides Nick Foles on the roster. I think if they make the trade for Carr, which I think is more likely than not, I think that they draft a left tackle immediately in the draft. Maybe even, and again, we'll see. You'll see it in my mock draft actually, who I think they will end up drafting.
Yeah.
But I could see a left tackle. I could see a guard. I think they definitely go offensive line if they draft Derek Carr. Now, if they don't, or trade for Derek Carr. Now, if they don't trade for Derek Carr, I think you see the Bears get aggressive, and I think they trade up and draft either a Trey Lance or a what's his name? Shoot,
Trask?
Mac Jones.
Oh, Mac Jones.
No, I don't think Trask is in that kind. I don't think you're trading that for Trask. Let's put it that way.
Okay. That's the one I don't know much about him. I just see everyone make fun of him.
He's like got flashes, but they're not bright enough to be warranting a first round pick. Like he's a guy that you take on day 2 in the second or third round that you're like, if like he's a guy that you want to compete for the starting job, but you don't want to be like your ace in the hole. Like you don't want to be like, I'm betting the franchise on that guy. Like you definitely don't want that. But if he's out there competing, for a starting position with another younger quarterback or something like that, then yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
For example, like if the Colts made the trade for Carson Wentz and then on day 2 they drafted Kyle Trask, I think that would be great.
Do you think there's a scenario where they depressingly go into the season with Nick Foles projected as their starting quarterback? Do you think they stoop down that low and really just bet the job on him?
I don't think so. I think there's no way Nick Foles starts day 1.
Yeah, I really fucking hope not. Because I really think it's so much more likely they make a really desperate trade than they just go in and then be like, this is good enough. I don't even know if I doubt they'll draft somebody because they'll be too worried about him going somewhere or being able to develop quick enough.
Because I think what's going to happen is the Bears have the best offer on Carson Wentz. I think if they miss out on Carson Wentz, which I think is inevitable at this point, and he goes to the Colts, I think that 100% they're going to pull the trigger on a Carr trade.
I mean, the Colts are smart too, though. Why would they? I mean, like, I guess they have Frank Reich thing, and they think that that's going to happen. But
it's Frank Reich connection, but also they think that they can fix him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, they know more, and they could see that from the tape and everything. But like, damn, really bad last season, and just worse, like since his MVP form.
Well, and the other thing too is you have to remember too, like we said before, the Colts have a ridiculous amount of money, which means that they don't have to be as like crazy picky about, going for like if they go for Carson Wentz and then like I said on day 2 they draft Kyle Trask, they don't have to be like if Derek Carr doesn't work or not Derek Carr, if Carson Wentz doesn't work out, they can kind of eat that money and move on because they have the money.
Yeah, I mean that is true. I just wonder why wouldn't they want to go straight to like Derek Carr or something? If we both think that he's probably going to be better, they really are that confident.
He's 100% going to be better. I just think it's coaches think that they can fix a guy, and Frank Reich knows him, and Frank Reich could go, hey, we have a good offensive line, we'll sign a receiver like a Galladay. Because look at the Colts. So they draft, let's say that they sign Galladay. They still have their first round pick because I think they're not going to have to trade that for Wentz. So let's say they get Wentz, they sign Galladay in free agency. Maybe they sign even like a Shaq Barrett, and that's like that's their free agency haul. And that suddenly you have a really good young defense with a good pass rusher now added in. Then you have a great offensive line. And in the first round of the draft, you draft a left tackle because Costanzo retired, their left tackle.
Oh.
So you draft a left tackle, and now your offensive line's set. You have wide receivers Michael Pittman, T.Y. Hilton in the slot, Galladay is your lead receiver, and then add in Carson Wentz, who maybe with all of those things, plus Frank Reich, knowing how he was when he was good, maybe that leads to where Carson Wentz is almost back to his old self.
Yeah. It's something I could buy. Yeah.
That's what I mean. And then you draft Kyle Trask in round 2, and now you go, okay, we have 2 young quarterbacks on the roster because they also drafted Jacob Eaton, I think, last year. So now you have 2 young quarterbacks on the roster that you're grooming. You have Carson Wentz as your presumable starter. But if Carson Wentz starts failing, well, guess what? Halfway through the season, if you have to go to Kyle Trask, it's not the end of the world because some people thought Kyle Trask could be a first round pick. So, at the end of the day, if you end up with just a rookie who's, making rookie mistakes and is not as talented as you hoped, that's not the end of the world because you can always just come back next year and, okay, let's take a look again at the free agency market and draft and whatever's there.
Okay. Well, here's a question too. Since you brought up the Colts, it made me think of: is T.Y. Hilton going somewhere else? Is he done? Is he a 1-year deal on a rental somewhere else? See if he's still got anything left.
I think if he goes, I think if T.Y. Hilton's smart, he re-signs with the Colts on a lesser deal, a really small deal, because I don't think after what he did this season, a lot of teams are signing up to sign T.Y. Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
But the Colts, it's one of those where he knows the offense. So if T.Y. Hilton took a discount and the Colts could have him right back to plug into the slot and have Michael Pittman and Godwin, or not Godwin, Galladay as your 2 wide receivers, well, then there you go.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what I think.
Okay.
But yeah, and then here's another interesting thing too, and actually you could pull him up on Google because I don't think a lot of people know him, but Allen Robinson for the Bears. I think at this point, and I know it's sad, I think at this point it's a 65% chance I'll say that he gets signed and traded.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. There's another name I want you to bring up here in a second when I get to it.
Oh, okay.
But I think that it's more than likely he gets traded, signed, tagged, and traded. And I think I saw a trade that I really liked, and I think the Bears should definitely look into this. Is I saw a tag and trade for a straight up player for player deal, which would be Allen Robinson to the Ravens for Orlando Brown.
Oh, is that the guy who wants to be a left tackle?
Google. Yeah, pull him up.
Interesting.
So he's playing right tackle here, and look at this is against TJ Watt. So the thing I like about this trade is Orlando Brown got moved over to left tackle this year with Stanley out, or Staley? I think
Staley, yeah.
Staley. With Staley out, and he ended up playing at like a Pro Bowl left tackle level.
Mm-hmm.
Now the thing is with Orlando Brown is he's on a 1-year deal right now as well because you have to sign him because he's about to come off his rookie deal. So I think what you're looking at the trade is that you'd go for the Ravens, they get rid of a guy who's, wanting to basically play left tackle and get paid like that. Well, the Ravens can't do that. They physically can't. They have a left tackle who is better than him and will come in and play who's already paid. So they physically cannot pay him. So they basically, if they want to avert him being pissed off the whole season and it not working out and then them losing him for nothing, they have to trade him. And I think you want to look at a team who's a team that has a player who also is unavailable, who's at the same kind of level, who really need a left tackle.
Yeah.
And would be willing to pay him left tackle money after they presumably cut Charles Leno and Bobby Massey.
I guess that makes sense. That would be a value play for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. But I don't know. Would you? I mean, if he's playing left tackle, he's playing a Pro Bowl left tackle level, but they are still in a 1-year deal.
He's also 25 years old.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the value. I guess it's pretty similar, like a premier wideout one. Yeah, okay.
Well, you also have to think about it from this. You have to think about it from this standpoint. Allen Robinson. It came out not too long ago that Allen Robinson has not had contract talks with the Bears since September.
Yeah.
Because of that, the Bears probably aren't going to re-sign him. So they're going to have to tag him in order to get value out of him somehow. Either have him for another year or, and trade him.
Yeah.
I think what you do with this trade is you get rid of a guy who you're not re-signing apparently, but you get a guy in the left tackle position that you desperately need that you can sign for long term. And then in the draft, because you signed a left tackle or you traded for left tackle, you don't need a left tackle. So then in the draft, in the first round, you go after like a Rashad Bateman, who's a 6'2" wide receiver who a lot of people think that if you lost Allen Robinson, he would be a great replacement.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I like that more.
Talent level, obviously. I mean, we don't know that yet. He's a rookie, but
I kind of like that. I could definitely need wide receiver help, and
that's what I'm saying.
I don't see him staying here.
You imagine they add Allen Robinson and they give Lamar Jackson, and they have a lot of money too. That's another thing that people don't realize about the Ravens is they have a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
And so they could easily turn around and offer Allen Robinson a 4-year deal that keeps him there until he's 32, 33 years old and give him, 19 million a year. And then for the next 3-4 years, he's Lamar Jackson's number one, target. And then guess what? You allow Hollywood Brown to be the deep threat rather than just the number one. And
Yeah.
then you have your tight end. I mean, that it's to me, it seems like a no-brainer for the Ravens and for the Bears because the Ravens, like I said, it's not working out. Like, you're not going to salvage this whole thing because Orlando Brown's made up his mind. He wants to be a left tackle and he wants to get paid like a left tackle. And so you already have a left tackle that's already paid. So you literally cannot do that. So he's got to go.
I mean, it depends on where their priorities lie. If they want to keep on going with their ground, run the ball, pound the ball, everything, that's going to weaken them at the line and probably take that away. But if you're, the modern NFL, you want to lean towards passing, you get Allen Robinson, then I could see that. But it's just probably a matter of where their philosophies are at.
Well, here's the other thing, too, with the Ravens. You have to remember they have a first-round pick. So if the Ravens wanted it will let Orlando Brown go because he wants to play left tackle and we don't have a left tackle. Okay, well, now we need a right tackle. We'll go and draft a right tackle. Like,
yeah,
you have a draft pick, and obviously you don't need to address wide receiver because you did. To me, it just makes total sense. I don't think that it's going to be a trade that occurs. I don't think it's going to happen.
Too obvious.
Yeah, a lot of things would have to happen. Like, you'd have to have Orlando Brown. You'd have to have Orlando Brown request to trade, and the Ravens have to be like, yeah, we're trading him.
Oh, that's a play.
Which I don't think is going to happen. Yeah, which I don't think is going to happen. And then, because I don't know what the Ravens are going to do. Like, they're going to have to trade him. Like, they're going to have, unless you want to lose him for no value and you want to just put him at right tackle, have him be pissed off all year, and then lose him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
like I said,
it makes too much sense.
It's just something that I could see down the road where if Allen Robinson got tagged and the team wasn't going to renegotiate a contract, they're going to look to trade him. And if that's the case, there's a lot of dominoes that have to fall. They have to commit to trading Allen Robinson because he's not going to resign. And they have to tag him. So they have to tag him first, then they have to commit to trading him because he's not going to resign. Then you also have to have Orlando Brown hardcore doubling down on the fact that he wants to be left tackle. So then the Ravens go, do we lose him in free agency or do we get value? And they have to make that decision to get value. And then both those teams have to somehow communicate together or have a call that gets placed or an idea that gets put where they call each other up. I just don't think all those dominoes are going to happen. So I don't think it will happen, but I think it's one of those trades where to me, it just makes so much sense that I don't know,
Yeah. That's a pretty good one. That's probably one of my...
Another thing I wanted to talk about was the cuts that are going to happen for the Bears real quick while we finish up with them, and then I want to get to my mock draft.
Okay.
So I think the Bears are going to cut. I think for sure you're getting cuts out of Screen. He's gone. Graham's gone. And then I think you get Bobby Massey gone.
More than likely.
And I think those are the three cuts you see immediately. And I think cuts you could see down the line is if they draft a left tackle. If they draft a left tackle, Leno's getting cut. If they draft a left tackle, and then I saw things that were like, the Bears could cut Akeem Hicks and save $10 million. That's not happening. Like, it'd have to be one of those where we don't have the money to make the trade for Deshaun Watson, but the Texans have accepted the trade. We have to make the trade. We cut then they cut Akeem Hicks.
Yeah.
That's the only scenario that happens.
Yeah, I think he means, regardless of his durability being maybe a concern that he's gotten older.
No, he's just he is not the best player on that defense. He's just he is not the best overall. Player. Probably Roquan Smith's better. Mack's definitely better. Eddie Jackson at his peak is probably better. But without a single doubt in my mind, Akeem Hicks is the heart of that defense.
Yeah. No, they'll fall apart.
If he's on the field, that defense is playing to the level that they can play at.
And who knows how he'll actually be used in the new scheme. use with Mr. Desai.
I'm excited for it because I think, from what I've heard about Desai, listening in more on it, it seems like Desai is the type of guy that everybody kind of thought was going to start coming up and being good. And I think what happened is that he finally got his opportunity because the Bears decided to go with him. And then I think it was great for the Bears to sign Pettin. What was his name from
Oh, Mike
the
Pettin?
Packers?
Yeah.
What was his name? Yeah, that
Oh,
was a
Mike
great
Pettin?
signing
Yeah.
because when you have an up and coming coordinator like Desai, he needs a guy who he can go to who has the experience, who's like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, and the guy could be like, yeah, I've seen that work, or like, or like, no, like that's been never worked in my history because of this. And then Desai could go, oh, okay, thank you. And then like, that's why he needed a veteran advisor, in there. And I was really hoping they did sign somebody. And so I'm actually glad that the Bears made the right decision here.
Yeah, and if anything, he'll know how to stop getting like Aaron Rodgers to the Super Bowl. So he can help us out with that.
Yeah. All right. So I want you now. All right. So I want to go to the website. So right off the bat, so we're starting the draft off with basically chalk, or at least that's what I'll call it. Jacksonville Jaguars, number 1 off the board, Trevor Lawrence. Obviously not a shocker to anybody. Like I said earlier, Trevor Lawrence should be the number 1 overall pick. He's the most talented quarterback in the draft. My only issue with Trevor Lawrence is that I was really not impressed with his inability to kind of be that spark or be that, like, have that swagger of like a first, like, if you watch that Ohio State Clemson game, not once do I see him like ignite the offense or like try to like uplift his teammates or like yelling at his teammates, or I just like something
Very
like
chill.
no, he's just a very chill, like if the offense is going well, he's going to excel. And like he'll take your offense. If your offense is good, like if your offense is like middle of the road, he'll take your offense and you'll be a top 5 offense. The problem is if you're a bottom, 10 offense and you're hoping that he's going to basically become your Deshaun Watson to make things happen and elevate your offense, way higher than it should be, it's not going to happen.
I mean, so the Jags have some sort of talent, right?
Well, they have
good running back?
good wide receivers. They have DJ Chark, who I really like, young wide receiver. He's like 6'4", so he's kind of that red zone threat too. He has a little bit of issue getting open at times because he doesn't have top end speed, but he's a really good, reliable wide receiver. So he can get, as he develops his route running more, he'll get open more. So he's a good wide receiver to have. They don't really have a great tight end. They have a couple of young guys, not super spectacular. Trying to think of who her number 2 wide receiver is, but they're not like, they need to add some talent. Let's put it that way. But at least at least it's an up and coming team because they also have James Robinson out of Illinois State. Shout out to him, who was like top 3 leading rusher last year as a rookie. So he'll be there. So that's good that means that they can run the ball well, which will help Trevor Lawrence out with the offense. So now the only issue with the Jags is they have Urban Meyer as their head coach, and as much as I'm an Ohio State fan and diehard Ohio State fan, I never really liked Urban Meyer even when he was at Ohio State. He won us a championship, and that's where I got to give it to him. But I think Urban Meyer is not going to be successful in the NFL, and I think the reason why is because I think Urban Meyer, one of his biggest things is that it's like the Nick Saban thing where Nick Saban failed in the NFL. Nick Saban is a guy who, and same with Urban Meyer, both of them are guys who like have to command the team. Like they are the end all be all, they are the word gospel, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the whole Coughlin treatment of like 5 minutes early is 10 minutes late kind of shit.
Exactly. Like their
hate
word
that
goes
so much. I hate it so much.
They're not as hard nosed as Coughlin, but in that sense, but they're just like their word goes. Like they're the ultimate voice. And then the other issue too is they're both unbelievable recruiters, and that's why they're as good as they are.
Yeah.
The problem is you can't recruit in the NFL. You have to draft.
Yeah, I mean they're basically psychopaths that were just really lucky they were interested in football instead of killing people. It's just a lucky thing.
To say it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd describe Nick Saban as that.
Oh, come on, really? Totally.
Well, all Anyways, so first overall pick, Trevor Lawrence. Number 2 overall, I think the trade to the Jets doesn't happen, so I'm going straight up with just a Zach Wilson right here. That's the best.
Wow.
He's Trevor Lawrence is one, Zach Wilson is 2, and Zach Wilson's not super far off from Trevor Lawrence because of that attitude aspect, which I don't think Trevor Lawrence has. I think Zach Wilson has. Trevor
Yeah.
Lawrence has a better arm. Trevor Lawrence has better accuracy. He makes better decisions. Decision making is pretty close, but Trevor Lawrence has better accuracy, better arm, better talent. But Zach Wilson has the edge in the attitude department, which I think is super important to the Jets.
Interesting. So yeah, that's what I was talking about. Everyone pushing him up on the ladder, and you put him at number 2.
Yep.
Interesting.
That just makes sense to me. So then
Still looks like your 12-year-old cousin, but
he really does. He's got such a young face.
What a weird looking
it's the
dude.
quarterback look. Every quarterback has that look.
Yeah, except for him.
Except for Sunshine over here.
Yeah.
But what he lacks in looks, he excels in talent. So
yeah.
all right. So anyways, enough insulting the looks of our players. We're gonna go to our 3rd overall pick here, which is Jamar Chase. Now, it might be shocking for a lot of people to not see Devin Smith here, because he won the literal Heisman. But the issue is that Jamar Chase has a bit more size to him, 6'1", 208 pounds. He also is one of the best route runners in college football. He's, runs every route well. He is a go up and get it kind of guy. He reminds me of a guy who at his peak could be close to Odell's peak. So similar size. I think he's more of a Juju Smith, where he's very talented. He's very talented, young, great route runner, go up and get the ball kind of guy. I like Juju Smith is not. He's not. I wouldn't even put him in the category of Allen Robinson. He's not Allen Robinson. He's not DeAndre Hopkins. He's not Julio Jones. But Juju Smith-Schuster is in the next category of great receivers, and that's where I think this guy ends up.
Oh yeah, Devin Smith was the guy from Alabama, right? Oop.
Yep.
Oh,
and you'll see him later. You gotta control yourself there.
Spoilers.
So now here's the thing: if the Dolphins make the trade for Deshaun Watson, this pick is with the Texans, which I still think is the Jamar Chase. That's the funny part about this pick. I still think it ends up Jamar Chase. Just because if the Texans make this trade and they trade for Tua and this pick, then I think they draft Jamar Chase because they don't have DeAndre Hopkins. Fuller's a free agent. And so I think you immediately have to give to a wide receiver that he can throw to, and I think that's Jamar Chase. 4 overall, I think this is an interesting pick for people. I think Atlanta takes Justin Fields. I don't know if it's reading the tea leaves. I don't know if it's a feeling I have about it, but I just feel like Atlanta takes Justin Fields because he, in my opinion, is the next quarterback off the board. And I don't think he's that far off from Zach Wilson. I think doesn't have the same attitude that Zach Wilson has, but I think Justin Fields has he definitely has the potential and the attitude to walk into an organization and be a good starter right away and develop into a great one.
Yeah. What do they do with Matt Ryan then?
Yeah, well, Matt Ryan. So next year, if Matt Ryan's cut, it saves the Falcons $27 million. I think it is, or $25 million or something.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great spot for them to draft Justin Fields because I think you start Matt Ryan next year and you have Justin Fields sit behind Matt Ryan the entire year, learning the offense and getting ready. And then I think what happens is next year the Falcons draft wide receiver talent or just something offensively, whether it be offensive line, running back, or wide receiver. And basically the Falcons get a weapon for Justin Fields who will take over when they cut Matt Ryan.
Wow. Okay.
So interesting. I think Matt Ryan this is like a bridge.
Not what I would have expected, but very interesting.
Yeah. So that's what I think. I think this is a great spot for them to draft because they already have a quarterback in place that they know is the starter. So it's why not draft a quarterback who, like, that you'll save a ton of money if you cut Matt Ryan next year. So why not take a quarterback who can sit behind him for the entire year and learn the offense and develop, and you can get in your system grooming him, kind of like a Patrick Mahomes, for instance. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes, but it's the same scenario where Patrick Mahomes is definitely was better off his second year because he sat.
Yeah. Well, because that requires foresight, and that doesn't really.
No.
I don't.
And I think this is the rare opportunity where a team clearly has a quarterback who's going to be the number one starter. And so you have the opportunity to draft a quarterback to put behind him.
All right. And this is one that I actually know about, even with my extremely limited knowledge of college football. And this is what I've seen from the beginning.
Yeah, Penisel. So number 5 overall, the Bengals, Penisel. He's just the elite. He's the left tackle that your team's gonna have for the next 10 years. Like that's what he is. He's the stud left tackle. He reminds me a lot of Joe Thomas in the way that he's just gonna be an anchor for your team for the next 10, 12 years.
Okay.
So
high praise.
For the Bengals, you draft T. Higgins, who showed a lot of potential last year. You draft Joe Burrow last year. You have a running back in Mixon. You have tight ends who are a little younger but getting there. Your offensive line. You drafted a left tackle, but I believe Penisel also played right tackle a decent amount. So I think he could move over to right tackle. But you have another left tackle as well that you could also move over to right tackle. So it's one of those where they drafted a left tackle 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
In Jonah Williams, who I really like too, but I think either one of them could play right tackle. I think you put Jonah Williams at right tackle, Penisel at left tackle, and I think you have your two tackles for the next 8 years that Joe Burrow can sit behind and be Joe Burrow.
Okay.
So that's just a no-brainer to me if he's available at 5. Now the
Yeah.
Dolphins could make that pick because the Dolphins drafted a left tackle last year in Austin Jackson in the first round, so that makes me think that they won't go left tackle here and that they'll take Jamar Chase if he's available if they don't make that trade with Deshaun Watson. So, and then if the Texans make the trade, they're not drafting Sol simply because they already have the left tackle position locked up with a massive contract that was much deserved, but a massive contract to I forget what his name is, but he's at the Texans. He's already there. So
Oh, long mask guy, Laramie Tunsil.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, he locked it up. He's a stud. He's a Pro Bowler. You pay him well, and it's deserved.
Yeah. All right. Does that mean we get to scroll down and
Yep,
reveal the
moving on to
next
the next
5?
So 6 through 10 here.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an interesting pick for the Eagles. To me, it makes total sense because Eagles drafted wide receiver in Jalen Reagor last year, who's a great talent. He's just not a guy that you can rely on in the red zone anywhere like that. Now you have Ertz, who's and his production's dropping off every year. So, in my opinion, you look at Kyle Pitts, who, if you look at Kyle Pitts, that man is like 6'6, 240. He's athletic. He reminds me a lot. He's more of a tight end than wide receiver than he was, but he reminds me a lot of Chase Claypool from last year, where Chase Claypool felt like a hybrid.
Yeah.
He ended up being a wide receiver, but he felt like a hybrid wide receiver tight end. This is what Kyle Pitts feels like. He feels more on the tight end side, so he's a little slower, but he's a little bit bigger too. So he's 6'6", 240, whereas Chase Claypool was 6'4", 230, or 235 or something. Okay, so anyways, yeah. So what I was saying with Kyle Pitts, he's going to be a red zone, threat. He's also going to be basically a wide receiver tight end hybrid, very similar to what the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce, as well as the 49ers do with Kittle. He's going to be an unbelievable player in the NFL. He's a perfect player for the new NFL that is playing, speed ball, where your tight ends are fast and can catch the ball. He's perfect for that. So I think not only do you draft a tight end to replace Ertz, and give Jalen Hurts a red zone threat, but you also draft a guy who also is going to be a threat as a wide receiver, kind of lining up like Kelsey does off the line. So, and then Lions, I know he falls this far, seems a little odd, but again, Jamar Chase just seems like he's the guy that's gotten a lot more. He just seems a little bit. He's got like the slight edge over Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is a great receiver who I think is going to be a star in this league. Just watching his route running ability, his confidence catching the ball, his ability to his speed, his knowing the offense and playing well in the offense. He's produced at every point or every year in his career at Alabama. He's the one that caught that touchdown from Tua to win the national championship that a lot of people forget. Um, he's just he's a great receiver who is a little undersized, and that's the only reason why I think he falls, is he's a little undersized, and I think he's just not his upside isn't as high as it seems for Jamar Chase, and that's why he ends up at the 7 here to the Lions. But don't get me wrong, the Lions are getting a wide receiver who, if the Lions are going to try to make Jared Goff work, which again I think was a great trade for the Lions. By the way, I don't think that gets talked about a little bit, but it was a spectacular trade for the Lions. They basically got rid of a guy who, was already 31 years old, who, they're going to have to rebuild anyways again, which means that they're going to
Yeah.
have to get, he's going to be 35 at the end of that rebuild. So they had to move on, and they got a massive haul. And getting Jared Goff seems like, oh, that's a lot of money for a quarterback who hasn't been super good. But here's the thing: Jared Goff's 26 years old. If Jared Goff figures it out in 2 years because they changed the offense a little bit, and Jared Goff starts to grow and become a decent quarterback, I mean, you're looking at a guy who could be 29 years old in 3 years with a team that's rebuilt, who is already playing better. And then at that point, you don't really care about the contract because you got a good quarterback. Now, if he doesn't pan out, the contract doesn't really matter either because you're rebuilding. So it's not like you're spending a ton of money yet, anyways.
Now, what about the flip side of that, where he is good enough to keep them in 7-7, 8-8, hell purgatory because of that?
Well, then they become the Lions of usual.
So you're saying there's a chance that's going to happen again?
There's a chance, but what I'm saying here at this draft pick is that they're getting a receiver who is going to be a very reliable number one target for Jared Goff. And if you want Jared Goff to work, you get him a wide receiver who is going to come in and produce immediately and be a weapon in the slot, running outside, in motion, running sweeps or jet sweeps, all kinds of things you could do with him. That's a guy that you want to give Jared Goff in order to see if Jared Goff can become who he is.
Yeah.
Or who he could be.
Gotcha.
All right, next pick overall, I think you go to the eighth Carolina Panthers. I talked about earlier as being a heavy trade target. One of the three, I think, that are going to try to trade for Deshaun Watson and have the ability to try to. I just think they're going to fall short because I don't think they have that draft capital. I think it's a little bit more appealing for the Texans to get either the second or third pick from the Jets or the Dolphins rather than getting the eighth pick. Especially because, with the Dolphins, they get a quarterback and the third pick. With the Jets, they get a quarterback who I think is going to step in and change and become a good, playmaker. So in Zach Wilson. So those two trades seem better than the Carolina Panthers are going to be able to offer. So I think the Panthers turn to the draft. And I think Trey Lance is the perfect quarterback for the Panthers because Trey Lance is a guy coming from North Dakota State. Not a lot of people saw him. He played one game this year because of COVID. It was kind of a not really notable game anyways. But what Trey Lance has that a lot of people are intrigued by is he's very athletic, but he also has a great arm, and he just seems to have that like it factor. Like I've watched a decent amount of his film because I thought he was going to be a potential target for the Bears, and I still think he could be if he falls past the Panthers. I think if he falls past the Panthers, the next team that's looking for a quarterback is the 49ers. But if the 49ers aren't sold on him, the Bears could trade up. And that's where I think if you see a trade if you see a trade up from the Bears, that's where they're going. So would be to get this guy, Trey Lance. And I think all of that compiles into a quarterback who is very raw talent with a great arm, great athleticism, and pretty good accuracy downfield. You just need to mold him into a quarterback that fits. Like, you need to basically nurture his abilities that he already has to turn him into that quarterback. That's going to be your guy. And I think the Panthers are a great spot again, just like the Falcons, where the Falcons have a year of a year of Matt Ryan that they know they're going to have. Same with the Panthers. The Panthers have a quarterback under, contract who, what if you say as a Panthers, you draft Trey Lance, you put him behind Teddy Bridgewater for a year, you have him learn, and you go, okay, let's take a look again for another year at Teddy Bridgewater and see if now after a year being in the offense, he can take a jump. If he takes a jump, great. You have Trey Lance as a backup quarterback who you can still nurture and grow, maybe even trade him for, something in the future, but you still have him on the roster to have in case Teddy Bridgewater doesn't take that jump and just continues to be kind of what Teddy Bridgewater is, which is more of a game managing Kyle Orton type of quarterback. And so that's why I think it's a perfect pick for the Panthers. I think he can sit behind Teddy Bridgewater for a year and comes in the next year ready to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Broncos take a cornerback here. They need a cornerback. AJ Bouye is, I think, still on the roster for the Broncos, but I think he's going to be a free agent. And then I also think that they just don't have a number one cornerback on that team. And I think the Broncos are one of those teams that you see sign like a Dupree or Judon and get some pass rush and linebacker help. And so I think that frees them up to be able to go after cornerback because they addressed wide receiver last year. They already have Drew Lock, who they think could develop. And I think he still could as well. I think he just needs more time than people thought, but that's not a bad thing. I think he still has the arm talent and the ability. They have the wide receivers, they have the tight end, they have an offensive line that's starting to become better over time working together. So their offense is fine. I think they need a cornerback who will be a number one. And I think Caleb Farley is a guy who may not be one that jumps off the thing as like I know that name, but he's a guy that is played very well. He's like 6'2", 200 pounds, and being at that height, he's perfect for a number one cornerback because he can jump with those number one wide receivers that are a little bit bigger. He plays well on the outside. He plays really well, and he could definitely become one of those guys that you trust to be your number one corner. And that's why I think he ends up going here. And I think you're going to see his draft stock rise a lot in the combine, as well as going through not the combine, but his pro day, as well as going through the draft process.
Yeah.
And then number 10, Dallas Cowboys take Patrick Surtain. That just makes sense to me. They need a cornerback as well. Caleb Farley's off the boards. The two best corners are kind of 1A, 1B. Neither of them are better than the other. I think you're fine with either one. Patrick Surtain, in my opinion, is better than Farley, but with Farley's draft stock rising so far this season and probably in the draft process, I see him going before Surtain. But I think Surtain's a great player. Slightly smaller, I believe. He's like 6'1". Still could play outside, still big enough to compete with those number one wide receivers, and just overall great cover back. So,
yeah, they need help on D.
So, all right, next 5, 11 Giants. This is a pick that's just too good to pass up for the Giants. They need pass rush. They desperately need it. Gregory Rousseau, in my opinion, is the pass rusher to go and get this draft because he's the type of guy who he's 6. I mean, just like hover over his name so it pulls up his measurables. And then he's also just such a raw talent at 6 foot. He's only 21 years old, coming in out of the draft at University of Miami. He played very well there, showed a lot of talent and a lot of pass rushing ability. He's just a very good prospect to bring in who he's not a Chase Young where, day one, you're going to be like, wow, this guy's a game changer. But 3 years from now, you're going to hear Gregory Rousseau having 10 plus sacks. I mean, he's just too good. It's just too hard to pass up on a guy who's 6'6", 250 and who has speed pass rushing. He has power pass rushing in this game. He's just so good. He's too much of a prospect to pass up. So the Giants take him right there, needing the edge help. Then I think San Francisco 49ers right here. I think they need a cornerback. I think after seeing Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain go back to back, there's cornerbacks is a thing that you don't want to miss on because a good corner is hard to come by. Like there, you can get good corners in the draft in the second, third round, but you won't get those game-changing corners that'll be your number one. And they need it desperately after basically Sherman's leaving. So JC Horn seems to fill that position. I haven't watched much film on him, so I can't talk too much in depth about him. I just know that he's an upcoming prospect. He's a guy that is expected to be a guy that can play number one overall. So that's where I'm at with that. I think he's just a guy that's going to fill in. Yeah, go highlight over Gregory Russo real quick so you can see his 6'5". Yeah, he's 6'6". He's 6'6", 260. I mean, some places have even listed him at 6'7". He's that like big. 15 and a half sacks in 2019 is what they're saying.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, he's too good to pass up. If you're looking for a pass rusher, he's not Chase Young, but guess what? He very well could be in the next 4 years. So, okay, and then JC Horn, you can highlight over him. So 6'1", 205 again, and he's got that size. Being under 6 foot or at 6 foot for your number one corner is hard. Like guys that come to mind right now, I think of the best corner example under 6 foot is Jair Alexander, who's 5'11". But even him, he's 5'11", and he makes up for it in just his pure athleticism. So, but 6'1" is about where you want to be, 6'1", 6'2" for your corner at your number one position, just because they have to compete with those big guys, like a Julio Jones and stuff like that. Like he has to go up against those type of guys. So he's just a pure raw athlete corner talent who can very well develop into a great starting number one corner for a team. I don't think he'll ever be a superstar, but he definitely could be a very, very solid number one option.
Gotcha.
All right,
Got
and
a
then
thick ass
next,
face.
huh?
He's got a thick ass face. Looks scary.
Yeah. Next, I got Rayshawn
He looks
Slater.
totally the opposite.
What?
This guy looks like he beat the shit out of you. This guy's bigger, but he looks like a total goof.
Yeah, well, Rayshawn Slater is... So what I like about Rayshawn Slater, especially going to the Chargers, is Rayshawn Slater is a good tackle, but he also has the ability to play guard, which I think is very helpful for the Chargers because they need help. Justin Herbert, they got to protect Justin Herbert. Get a guy in Rayshawn Slater who definitely has the ability to do that. He also has the ability to slide inside. So just a no-brainer here. He's rising up on the boards. A lot of people. He's got a lot of talent. He's just one of those guys that can play outside and inside, and that's very valuable in the NFL nowadays, especially being 6'4" through 15. He's not very big, but he's athletic, so he makes up for it with his speed, which means that you can play a little bit more of an athletic type of offense, which is always what the offense is, or what the NFL's aiming towards.
Yeah.
Next pick, I got God, I don't even want to try to say the first name, but
Kwity Paye.
I think it's Kwity.
Okay.
Quitty. I think it's Quitty. But anyways, Kwity Paye, guy out of that school up north, which I won't say because I'm an Ohio State fan. He played. He's a very good pass rusher. Very big. He's a senior, 6'4", 277. What that means is that he's already got that NFL body. So you're not bringing in a raw prospect. He's a guy that's going to produce on day one. He doesn't have the same upside that I think Gregory Russo has, but he does have that automatic going to walk in day one and be productive, which is what they need. And so that's and he's, in my opinion, he's the next best edge rusher here on the board. So that's where he goes. And the Vikings need it too, because their pass rush was just bad last year. So
yeah.
All right, and then we go down to the Patriots here. I really thought back and forth with the Patriots. Do they take defense? Do they take a quarterback? I just don't know with them. I don't know what they're going to do. So I defaulted to Micah Parsons. He's the next best prospect coming off this board. He is probably a top 10 talent. He just falls this far because linebacker's not a position that was needed in the top 10. So he falls here perfectly to them, who the Patriots, I love their defense, and they love getting their defensive guys on cheap contracts, aka rookie contracts. And Micah Parsons is the guy who is going to step in and immediately be your number one middle linebacker and immediately be the captain of your defense. He's just that good. He can pass rush, he can run stop, he can cover a little bit. He's just an all-around great linebacker who's going to be, like I said, your number one, day one. And with Dante Hightower kind of falling off a bit because he's gotten older, it's perfect, slide right in, be the leader of that defense. Patriots, I have no idea what you're doing on offense or what you're doing at quarterback, but
Did
at least you're
Hightower
getting your
play this year,
defense.
or did he opt out as well? He had a bunch
He
of
opted out.
opt-outs. Okay.
All right. Now we move down to the bottom five. Cardinals starting off. How he falls this far, Cardinals do not know, but they take it immediately. They draft Jalen Waddle here, and I think the reason why you see them draft Jalen Waddle is because the Cardinals have, yes, they have, Christian Kirk. Yes, they have Isabella. Yes, they have, DeAndre Hopkins, but Isabella, in my opinion, is more of a depth wide receiver. Christian Kirk plays in the slot. So what you need with Fitzgerald gone is a wide receiver, because DeAndre Hopkins basically is what Fitzgerald was, where he's your reliable guy in the red zone, as well as, he's just your reliable guy. He's your go-to. So what you need on that offense is a guy who can take the top off of defense, as well as bring in incredible speed on the short crossing routes and slant routes that will inevitably be called in this offense, which is very predicated on a college style offense of, quick throws, quick decisions, say a couple throws downfield, but really just that quick throws, Kyler Murray running with the ball, that kind of style of offense. Perfect pick for them to take Jalen Waddle here and give Kyler Murray a wide receiver that will take the top off the defense, which will help DeAndre Hopkins on the side. And honestly, if they end up getting Jalen Waddle, that completes their offense. Now, about is the defense, which they've done and made strides for. They drafted Isaiah Simmons, who is one of my favorite prospects ever, and so they have plenty, and they're doing it right. Cliff Kingsbury surprised a lot of people with his offense, and I think they're going to continue to surprise a lot of people. And I think with Jalen Waddle, they're able to take another step towards becoming their potential.
Okay. Every time I see Waddle, I think local.
Yeah, Waddle and Sylvie. Next pick, I have the Raiders, 17 overall. Jeremiah. Oh God, I'm not even gonna try it. But anyways, Notre Dame linebacker. This dude is the Butkus linebacker, award winner, best linebacker in college football. Played for Notre Dame. Notre Dame linebackers are really good. Manti Te'o probably didn't live up to the hype as he could have, but I think with this guy, what you're seeing is that he has the pass coverage ability, which is great for the modern NFL, because with all these tight ends, Kyle Pitts coming into the NFL, George Kittle, Kelsey, all these tight ends who are super athletic and are basically almost wide receivers at this point. Jeremiah steps in and basically becomes that coverage linebacker who he will, play well in the linebacker slot as far as run stopping, but his main role is going to be in pass coverage and kind of being the leader of the defense more so, rather than being like a pass rusher or a run stopper. But that's more than enough in the Las Vegas Raiders. They need a guy who can command. They tried to get it last year. They paid a bunch of different linebackers trying to figure it out. And I think they do right here with the best linebacker, voted on the best linebacker. I think Micah Parsons is a better middle linebacker, but Jeremiah is definitely not a downgrade. So, and I think you move on to the Dolphins pick right here. Whether this is included in the trade I am not 100% sure if it needs to be. So if I'm thinking that the Dolphins are getting, I think if the Dolphins stick with Tua and their first pick is Jamar Chase, the wide receiver, then they're definitely going Najee Harris right here. If the Dolphins end up making that trade and they end up with Deshaun Watkins, Deshaun Watson. Wow, I'm combining names here. Then I
The
think they
best
might
quarterback
draft a wide
and
receiver.
wide receiver combo.
Yeah, yeah. So they're drafting a wide receiver here, or a wide receiver here potentially. But I still think Najee Harris is the best player available as far as a skilled position type guy because he's going to step in and immediately be a workhorse running back who not only can run the ball but also has shown a lot of catching ability out of the backfield. And if you are having Watkins or you're having Tua in there, either way, give them a running back that is going to be very reliable and a great pass catcher out of the backfield that get them out of trouble. If if their offensive line is not spectacular, which Dolphins offensive line is not incredible, and unfortunately with these draft picks, they're not helping it out. But maybe they address it in free agency a little bit. Regardless, this gives them a workhorse back that they can trust.
Who do they
Next
have
pick
running
right
right
here,
now? Don't really have anybody.
who?
Who do they have running right now? As their
They had
back?
Miles. I think they had Miles Gaskins running a lot, but he's not. They just have a lot of guys who aren't going to be your number one. I think they had like Matt Breida on the team, Miles Gaskin. They just had a lot of guys that were like good players, but just not going to end up being your number one. So moving on here, we got Washington football team. I think they go Mac Jones. And I think that's because they really, really need a quarterback. And I think that Mac Jones is the last and final quarterback in the first round that is available. And so I think that's where you end up seeing him go. There's nothing else I thought about this pick other than the simple fact that Washington needs a quarterback. There's one quarterback available who I think is a first round talent, and it's Mac Jones. And you know what? I mean, at the very least, Mac Jones will come in and be a day one starter. I think, especially with Washington, they're not the Panthers or the Falcons who can have a quarterback sit for a year. They're a team that needs a quarterback to come in immediately. And Mac Jones, I think, is the most NFL ready besides Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence. And so I think that he's the guy that goes here.
Interesting. What about a man Taylor Heineke?
I think they told you all you need to know when they gave him a 2-year, $8 million deal. $4 million a year is, I mean, Chase Daniels got paid $4 million a year for the Lions. Like,
Yeah. I'm surprised I'm not surprised he took that money, but I'm surprised that I guess that's all he got because he actually did pretty well.
yeah, but
Playoffs.
he's 28 years old, 28, 29 years old, which means that his athleticism is not going to be there forever. And because he had, one good game in a playoff, and a couple stints here and there, you can't give him a mess. He's not constituting like a $16 million a year contract off of that. Now, if they draft Mac Jones and Heineke wins the job and he goes out and has a good year and then has a good second year, well then at the age of 30 years old, maybe I'm thinking, okay, maybe he deserves a good contract with a different team or even the Washington football team. But until he has another good year or two, he's not going to get a big contract.
Yeah. Well, rip Mac Jones to the Bears.
Well, so here's the thing. I this is predicated on the fact that I think the Bears are going to address quarterback beforehand. I think if the Bears going to address the quarterback in the draft, I think they trade up with the 49ers or somebody like that in order to draft Trey Lance or Mac Jones. But in this draft, I'm thinking they probably end up making a trade for Carr. Does that constitute them having a first round pick? I don't know. I don't know if Carr, with that conversation, if Gruden really wants to move off of Carr because he's never liked Carr while he's been there. Does he get desperate enough where the Bears offer him a future first round pick and a second and they take it, instead of the two first round picks they were wanting? I could see them doing something like that or taking like a third round pick this year and a first next year. But either way, that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. I think the Bears end up with their first round pick this year and Derek Carr. And so I'm going with Elijah Vera Tucker, who is
Sounds
a
so
little
excited.
known. Huh?
He sounds so excited.
Well, okay. So the reason why I'm excited about him at this pick is because Elijah Vera Tucker is a great inside outside offensive lineman. So he played left tackle, as it says down there, but really with his athleticism and the way that he plays, he could be a guard. So what you're thinking with this pick is it gives the Bears flexibility because they could really go, if in free agency, for example, they draft or in free agency they sign a guard who they think can start, well, they can turn around and draft this guy and he can play left tackle. But let's say, they don't have a guard yet, or they don't have, and all they have is Leno. And let's say that they want to keep with Leno. Well, then they move this guy to guard. You move Cody Whitehair to right guard. You move James Daniels to center, which I think is the proper lineup for those two. And then you have Vera Tucker tucked in at left guard. And now all of a sudden you have 3 interior offensive linemen that are really good. And then 2 tackles that are, good enough to be helped out by the fact that they have a great interior offensive line.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion. He's 22 years old too, so he's young. So he's a guy that can step in. But like I said, he just has the athleticism where he could bulk up a little bit and play left tackle, or he could just swap into guard.
The breakout was it Alex Barrett ended up going up a bunch after finally got a start? Does he end up be a starter?
Mustafa played really well too at center.
Mustafa's who I was thinking of. That's right.
I think the Bears bring him back as a backup. I don't think he starts though. I mean, maybe he does, because there's a world where I could see them cutting Leno, having Vera Tucker at left tackle, having James Daniels at left guard, having Mustafa at center. Right guard is Whitehair, and then right tackle is whoever you pick up in free agency.
Yeah, there's no way they end up cutting Leno this year, right? I mean, like he sucks, but he's
well. They cut Leno if they get a left tackle that they like, because he can save them like 5 or 6 million, I think, and that's enough to get a player who is a serviceable right tackle.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a world where I could see they trade for Derek Carr. They free up cap space in order to make that happen by getting rid of Screen, Graham, and Massey. So you need a right tackle. Then they draft this guy to be their left tackle. They cut Leno, save 5 or 6 million. They sign for 4 or 5 million on a 1 or 2 year deal for a right tackle in free agency who could be either a veteran or could be a young guy who needs another chance. And you end up having an offensive line who, for the most part, I mean, you're talking about an offensive line that is significantly better than last year.
Yeah. Even towards the end of the year.
Yep. All right, so going into the back half of the draft now, we're going into the final 10 picks. The Colts right here, in my mind, they make the trade for Wentz. I believe they go and sign Galladay in free agency. So what do they need to address is the left tackle position, which is the only position that they have left, basically, because they have Costanzo, who retired. So they go out and get Christian Darrisaw. Christian Darrisaw is a guy who I really thought could go 20 to the Bears, because he's a solid left tackle. If you hover over him, I'm pretty sure he's like 6'5", 340 or 330. Oh, he's a little lighter than that, but he's still a solid left tackle. He's more of a guy who he's not going to move into guard, but he's going to be a left tackle no matter what.
Okay.
He's good. He's a very good left tackle. So that's why I think I really thought about it for the Bears, but I like Vera Tucker better for the Bears because of his ability to move into guard. So here, a team that clearly needs a left tackle because that's what they lost, you draft Christian Darrisaw, and then there you go. You fill that hole. All right. Next, I move up to which team is this? The Tennessee Titans, who need pass rush ability because they kind of suffered from that last year. They didn't have a ton of it, and so they really need to get that kind of lined up because they have Tannehill. They signed him for a long-term deal. They probably need a wide receiver, so I could see them going for a wide receiver here, but I think that they end up opting into an edge rusher in Joseph Asai coming out of Texas. He is 21 years old, so he is very young still. He's a very raw prospect that, if developed right, could develop into a very good starting offensive or starting pass rusher. It's just that he is more of a prospect than he is a immediate starter. So for a team like the Titans, who need the edge rush help, but kind of have already a pretty solid team all around, this seems to me like the best case scenario. It's one of those where it's best available that also fits a need, and that's where they go with Joseph Asai.
Interesting. Okay. And a running back.
New York Jets here take a second running back off the board already. I know running backs usually don't go in the first round as much as they used to in the past, but I think these two running backs just make so much sense in these teams. The Jets right here, I think this is predicated on the Jets drafting Zach Wilson and not trading for Deshaun Watson. I think they end up signing Travis Etienne because they don't really have a running back. I'm pretty sure last year you saw I forget what the rookie's name is, but then you also saw Frank Gore playing a lot. Obviously, not long term, for obvious reasons. So they draft Travis Etienne, who not only has the kick return ability, but also has the ability to run the ball well and catch the ball out of the backfield. He's not as talented, in my opinion, as Najee Harris. He kind of dropped off a little bit. His last year he was number one clear best running back in the league, or best running back in the country. This year he kind of didn't produce as nearly as well, and so he kind of fell off a little bit. He didn't seem to have the same oomph, but he still has that ability. He's still a solid running back. He's still the next best running back, and I think that for a team that again is drafting Zach Wilson, drafted Denzel Mims last year, drafted what's the left tackle's name? Mekhi Becton, who I really liked out of Louisville, or Louisville, I should say. Travis Etienne just makes a lot of sense here to fill in another skilled position to help out Zach Wilson's growth.
And
next one, Pittsburgh Steelers. This makes the most sense to me. They're losing offensive linemen left and right. What's his face just retired? One of the brothers. What's his name?
I literally just saw the news.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's like I'm pretty sure they're twins, right?
I believe.
Oh man, it's gonna come. It'll come to me at some point. But they just lost him. They lost their tackle. They need a good offensive lineman moving forward with whatever they do with Ben Roethlisberger or whatever quarterback situation is going to come in moving forward.
Right.
And I think Samuel Cosmi is the next best tackle here. 6'7", 300 pounds makes him not only a really, really big left tackle, but also a very athletic left tackle who, again, playing in the more modern NFL with athletic ability here. I think this is where you get to see a guy who will play the position more athletically than he does power-wise, but a great left tackle who could be a really, really solid starter in the NFL for the next, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So.
And
next one, Tevin Jenkins. Again, another guy who is pretty much the same kind of idea that I just talked about, Christian Darrisaw and Cosmi, is Tevin Jenkins. He's 6'6", 310. Again, another great solid left tackle who will basically, and he did play at right tackle too. It tells you right there, experience time at right guard, left tackle, right tackle. I wouldn't play him at guard, obviously a little too big for that, but I would play him at left tackle or right tackle. And right here, for me, this just makes the most sense. Again, another great tackle. Anyways, it makes a lot of sense for the Jaguars, who are just, after obviously drafting Trevor Lawrence. I told you they have DJ Chark there already. They got James Robinson at running back. They really need offensive line to protect Trevor Lawrence and kind of help to continue to build that offense. And I think this is a great prospect to pick right here, especially because the left tackle that's there right now, I can't remember his name. I can literally picture his face, but he is a free agent this year, so this makes a whole bunch of sense right here to immediate replacement to moving forward with a young team there. All right, last 5 picks of the draft, or 7 picks, I guess. Yeah, 7 picks. So we're moving into the kind of end of the draft. These are basically the teams that obviously are very close to a championship level, but they just kind of need a couple pieces. So with the Cleveland Browns, I have them picking Zaven Collins. Zaven Collins is a guy that didn't get talked about a lot out of Tulsa, 6'3", very athletic, he's just a very good all around linebacker. He's considered by a lot to be one of the best linebackers, and by some even the best linebacker in the country over Micah Parsons and Jeremiah from Notre Dame. But he just does a lot that you like. So he doesn't do anything super well. He's not, the best pass coverage guy. He's not, Micah Parsons is the best run stopping middle linebacker in this draft. Jeremiah from Notre Dame is the best pass coverage guy in the draft. This guy is a good pass coverage, a good run stopper, a good pass rusher. He's just all around, does everything well. So he's one of those guys that for them, they don't have a ton of help at linebacker. That's kind of where they're a little thin. So getting him to help in pass rush, getting him to be, again, a run stopper, do a little bit in coverage. He's kind of the do all that will step in and immediately be productive for a team that kind of needs it. And if they end up signing like a Shaq Barrett, for example, it's a perfect pick because he can add a little bit of pass rush in, but then more so focus on just being a middle linebacker, which is again something the team needs. So it's a great pick for them. Jalen Phillips, another very raw pass rusher out of Miami. Gregor Russo went before him because he's more talented, a little bit better of a prospect. Jalen Phillips, though, is still a very good prospect. He's just a little bit more raw, a little bit less upside than Gregor Russo, but still a very talented pass rusher, standing at like 6'5", 260, I want to say. He's more of a power guy than he is a speed guy, but he definitely is a very athletic pass rusher. And he's the type of pass rusher who can develop again into a very good starter in the league if he's developed right. Obviously, Baltimore has been a really good defensive team and they've developed their guys pretty well. So I think a great fit for them, a team that needs a little bit more pass rush help, especially after they're losing Judon. So this just to me makes sense as a great replacement. All right, so right here, Nick Bolton for the Saints. I didn't know too much about this guy going into the draft. I got to watch a little bit more film on him. But what I've heard about him is he's very much a guy who's going to step in and immediately be a starter. And he's not going to be again the best starter in the league. He's not the best middle linebacker in the league, but he is definitely going to be a run stopping force who he kind of reminds me a little bit, not as talented, but kind of reminds me a little bit of Roquan Smith in his ability to kind of fly around the field and stop the run. And with the Saints, they haven't had great linebacker play. And to be honest, the Saints are really kind of in a hole here with the transition from Drew Brees and having so much money on the dock that they don't have any cap space. So to me, this is just one of those where fill a need at linebacker position and get a young guy in that can start, hopefully building a young core that kind of transitions on from the Drew Brees era.
Yeah.
All right, next pick right here. This is probably one of those picks that a lot of people thought, not this exact player, but a lot of people thought this type of thing should have happened last year. Jalen Mayfield out of, again, that school up north, as an Ohio State fan, will not say, but he is a tackle who played left tackle, but has the ability to play right tackle, which is a crucial need in order to protect Rodgers in that offensive line, especially because they lost the right tackle this year and they didn't really address it well, and they suffered obviously. And so what they do right here is they shore that position up again with a very young, talented right tackle. He's like 20 years old, 21 years old coming in the league, so he's a very raw. He's a more of a raw talent than the other guys that went before him, but he's going to fill in a crucial need and step in day one and become a at least decent starter, if not have the potential to be a really good starter. So
And to Aziz
yeah, so
Ujulari.
this is another guy that doesn't get talked about a ton, but out of Georgia, very young again, very raw pass rusher. The Bills, yes, the Bills need a little bit more pass rush help. Everybody needs pass rush help, obviously, but the Bills, who are obviously in the AFC Championship and right there, need the pass rush help in order to get to the quarterback a bit more. Patrick Mahomes kind of was able to throw the ball all over them, and they were able to run against them pretty well. You need to rush the quarterback, and that was very evident in that game in order to kind of get that quarterback. Because the way you beat Patrick Mahomes is to get him off, to get him pressure on him. And the Chiefs they're going to have to compete. If the Bills want to make it to the Super Bowl, they have to get through the Chiefs. And so get some pass rushers that can get to the quarterback. You already have a very complete team around you. Granted, I think the Bills, to really be that team that's going to win the Super Bowl, they need to get a really, really solid tight end and probably a little bit better of a number 2 wide receiver for Josh Allen, so that way he has a little bit more of a reliable target at tight end position to kind of fall to if he needs to. But I think this right here fills a great need because there's not a tight end I want them to take here. There's not a wide receiver I want them to take here. Aziz makes the most sense at raw pass rushing ability. Again, add to those pass rushers, get to that quarterback, and hopefully you get to the Super Bowl. So this is an interesting one for the Chiefs. I thought they could go a couple different ways here. Their tackles obviously were injured, and that's why they didn't play well. They're going to get those tackles back. Schwartz, Pro Bowl tackle, he's going to come back. Now the problem is that their offensive line in the interior also needs a lot of help. And I thought Wyatt Davis right here would be a great pick for them because I thought he'd be able to step in at either left guard or right guard, and really immediately become a good starter in the league for a long time. And that's again, protecting Patrick Mahomes should be the number one after that Super Bowl because they have everything else. They lose Watkins, nobody cares in that organization because they already have the receivers. What's his name? Patrick Mahomes is too good for them to lose Watkins and be crippled. So I get offensive line help, get him protection, even if White Davis ends up just being more of a depth guy that can start if needed. Obviously, you saw that was important in the Super Bowl, so go and draft him. He probably should have gone earlier if teams needed a guard. It's just there were so many tackles, and then like the Bears, for instance, who I think he could be a great fit for. Take a guy who's more of a tackle guard hybrid, which is a little bit more flexibility than Wyatt Davis, who I think is more of an interior offensive lineman no matter what. So I think the Chiefs here take a guy that will just help to protect Patrick Mahomes for years to come.
Okay. And the
Last but not
final
least,
pick.
last but not least, final pick, Tampa Bay. I thought a lot about what they would do in the offseason, whether they would sign Barrett. I don't know. I feel like my heart tells me he's going to come back. Same with Levante David. I think if the Buccaneers are going to save on money, I think it's going to be a defensive tackle with Dominican Sue. I don't think they're bringing him back if they're going to bring Barrett back and Levante David. So I think you need to fill that hole. Christian Barmore out of Alabama, big guy, 6'5", 300 pounds, fill that hole in the middle. He will be right there, and he won't need to be the nose tackle, which is going to help him a lot in his development because of Vita Vea being there. So you just get a guy who's going to basically come in and immediately fill the Dominican Sue's role. Maybe not as well at start, but he'll develop into it. And so, yeah, so in my mind, looking at this pick, it just makes sense because in free agency, I think they're going to re-sign Levante David at middle linebacker. I think they're going to re-sign Shaq Barrett, so they don't need the pass rush on the outside. A lot of pass rushers already went off the board anyways that I would see them going there. So just to me, it made sense to go Christian Barmore, replace the Ndamukong Suh, and help that D line continue to be the threat it was that you saw in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay.